Thank you for joining us today. This presentation is on the correlation between educational level and political affiliation. Before we start, I'd like to take a minute to preface our findings. Everything discussed in this presentation is solely meant to reflect the data available on a group of people. Our findings in no way attribute specific traits to specific individuals.
We chose to look at the correlation between political party and level of education. And the first variable we chose was political party affiliation. And the second variable that we chose was the highest degree earned. And we looked to see what the connection between these two variables was.
We initially expected to find a strong relationship between degree and political affiliation, but we weren't sure what the relationship would show us. We decided to look and see if the data would show a lean towards one end of the political spectrum over another. Then we decided to explore further and look at the underlying causes of our findings.
Our hypothesis going into this presentation was that college would either make students more conservative or more liberal. That is, we expected to see a trend in one particular direction. These changes could stem from a variety of reasons, such as being involved in a liberal arts education or being around more conservative professors.
This graph comparing the relationship between highest education level and political party affiliation shows that people with the highest education levels are either strong Democrats or strong Republicans. This led us to the conclusion that education makes your beliefs more polarized. This is a chart that shows some of the statistical values that we were given by the GSS data. It shows there's little standard error and little standard deviation. This means that most of the data fits and that there are no significant outliers. That is important because it shows that this is not a random correlation.
The initial questions we had after looking at these graphs were about why exactly the higher level of education led to stronger political affiliation. We wanted to know what exactly it is about having a college degree or a graduate degree that solidifies and strengthens someone's political beliefs.
We began by searching for political affiliation and education level based on our GSS indicators. From there, we explored related terms and modified our search to include political participation and educational attainment level. We found that the polarization on either side of our graph represents not only political views but engagement in the overall process.
One of our studies looked at the effect of education on voter turnout. Voter turnout is important because it's a major factor of political participation. The study found that higher education levels lead to a greater chance of being more involved in politics, which correlates directly with our hypothesis. A graph showing that the more education an individual has, the more likely they are to vote. Specifically, a high school graduate has a 50% chance of voting, but after only taking some college courses, this jumps to 80%. This is significant because it also matches what our data says.
One source we used was an article called The Missing Link, exploring the relationship between higher education and political engagement. This article tried to find why exactly higher education leads to political engagement by testing 3 hypotheses. They found that it's the content of higher education that actually leads to political engagement. This source helped us to further understand our story because it supported the correlation between higher education and a strong political affiliation. However, it was important because it also explained why this correlation exists, which was different than many of our other sources that we found.
Another study that we looked at examined adolescent attitudes about political involvement. Students that were on the track to college had a more defined political belief system than those that were only on the track to complete high school. They were also more likely to be aware and participate in politics in everyday life.
This study was relevant because it showed that political behaviors do become more firm with age. This source was interesting because it was different than the information presented in our other sources because it was looking at a different age group. This study also reaffirmed the correlation between education and political engagement.
Education and Political Participation, Exploring the Causal Link was our final source, and it takes a different perspective on why higher education and political participation are traditionally correlated. The article says that the kind of people who participate in politics are usually the same kind of people who are likely to stay in school. The article comes from peer-reviewed journal Political Behavior and was written in 2010 by two political science professors with experience in research on political participation. Therefore, the source is both respected and recent. It provides a non-traditional explanation for our findings and supports it with a case study on education and the Vietnam draft.
Now that we've found credible sources to back our data, we wonder, why is this the case? Well, this is actually a common phenomenon witnessed in social psychology called group polarization. Group polarization is when the views of an individual in a group become more extreme than they were before entering the group. This is obviously just our hypothesis, but we believe it is a credible one. Delving deeper into our hypothesis, we believe that confirmation bias, common in-group identity, and ultimate attribution error contribute to the idea of group polarization. Each of these effects contribute in their own manner to group polarization by affirming beliefs and solidifying views. In conclusion, being involved in groups with like-minded individuals seem to contribute significantly to the outcomes of political beliefs. These beliefs are solidified with time, which is shown by the data. Additionally, being educated tends to lead people to become more politically involved. Most individuals who are politically involved have strong viewpoints, leading to a representation in the data.
Our modified search strategies proved to be extremely effective. We found 4 different sources that provide strong evidence to support our findings that political affiliation and educational attainment have a strong, positive correlation. Thank you for viewing our presentation.